Welcome. Thank you for being here. Before the United States Constitution, there were no laws that gave an inventor the right to own his invention. English kings, depending on royal whim, would sometimes grant a monopoly over a product or a process. Some American colonies and states had granted a few patents, but each inventor had to obtain a special act of the legislature. The greatest of all inventions is the Constitution itself. It was an original design that came from the creative mind of a very remarkable group of men who had fought for liberty, understood how precious it is, and built an instrument that has endured for over 200 years. These words are from Phyllis Schlafly in 1988 when she gave a speech to the Daughters of American Revolution, the National Defense Evening. And some of you that are a little bit older, Judge Michel, sorry to single you out, Judge Gohmert also, would remember that the Daughters of the American Revolution had these frequent meetings, and they were big policy meetings. And Phyllis Schlafly, for decades, was famous in the United States for giving speeches not on pro-family, not on anti-ERA, but on what's called the strategic balance and national defense. And so she cared a lot. This speech is called How American Inventors Changed the Way We Live. Phyllis knew what the topic of our event for today's conference a few hours ago and tonight, how true this was. Strong patents, the key to our national security. So welcome. My name is Ed Martin. I'm the president of the Eagle Forum Education and Legal Defense Fund. That's Phyllis Schlafly's organization. And we're so proud to be here with you to talk about patents, to talk about national security, and to honor some people who have done really great, important work in protecting our patent system and helping our nation be stronger. So thank you for being here. This afternoon, I hope many of you saw the panel, and we did record it. We'll make it available later. But we talked about the panel program, discussed how patents, and I should say reliable, enforceable patents, promote U.S. innovation and advance America's competitiveness. We had great panelists. I don't know if some of them are still here. Some are here now. Some had to go, and it was very interesting. Every panelist was an all-star, and Jim Edwards was ruthless with keeping them short, and they only had five-minute questions or something. I was like, let them all talk, Jim, but we'd still be down there. And we talk about strategic areas like wireless technology and biopharmaceuticals, institutional assets like tech transfer under Bayh-Dole. We had great, Joe was great on that. Commercialization of new inventions, standards-based invention, technological standardization, and the means of defending patents in U.S. courts, and on, including the International Trade Commission. So we'll continue that tonight. Some of that will be also too short. We'll wish we had more time, but we'll continue this conversation. Congressman Byron Donalds came by and was excellent. He sort of knocked everybody's socks off, except for Massey and Gohmert. He's everybody's favorite congressman. We just say that because they're here, obviously. And in a moment, John Schlafly will come up and give us a few moments on Phyllis Schlafly's history, and why she cared so much about patents and how it matters, and I'll talk about John in a moment. And of course, the legend, Judge Michel, is here with us, and he already, so Schlafly pins Michel. Yeah, clap's good. Schlafly, John, tries to pin Judge Michel at the bar here and says, hey, did you see Judge Mukasey's column? You know, I don't know if you all read this in the Wall Street Journal. It was a very unfair advocacy piece by federal judges must be practicing law for a client. But anyway, and Judge Michel said, oh, John, I took care of that. I wrote a letter to the editor. That's in the queue already, and I'm working on an essay refuting it. So John said, oh, thank goodness, we've got him on the case. So Judge Michel, as always, thank you for being here, but also for all that you're doing for this fight at this moment. So let me ask Gabe Neville to come up, please, and Jim Edwards. Gabe's going to lead us in prayer, and then Jim will lead us in the pledge. Gabe Neville of Covington, and one of the great allies in this fight, too, has been so instrumental for us at the Eagles to do this work. So, Gabe, please.
Thanks so much. Let's bow our heads. Lord, there's a lot for us to be concerned about today, but we congregate tonight with gratitude. We are grateful for our inventive natures. Not only are we created in your image, but you gave us conscious minds and opposable thumbs and all that we need to be creative ourselves and to invent. We are grateful for our founders who had the wisdom to protect and reward invention, not just in statute, but in our Constitution. We are grateful for this collection of allies and friends and colleagues who are dedicated to preserving a system that has done so much to grow health and prosperity in this nation for so long. We're grateful for members of Congress who are our champions, some of whom are with us tonight. And we are grateful for this meal. Food is also a blessing we take for granted, and we are grateful for it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jim?
Please rise and join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thomas Massey just handed me a note, said some of our opposable thumbs are bigger than other people's. I don't know what that means, but I got you, Thomas. By the way, I heard this. This is a true story. A friend of mine was in the room yesterday when Massey and Isa were in the room comparing patents. And then Isa left, and Thomas said he actually invented his as opposed to, anyway, okay. That's kind of an inside joke. Don't tell Congressman Isa. We do have some great VIPs, but I want to thank our sponsors. We have incredible sponsors that let us do this work and have this event, and it's really important that they come together and they work with us. And so I want to thank them right now. Acacia Research Group, Biotechnology Innovation Organization, the Innovation Alliance, Interdigital, and Pharma. Thank you very much for your support of tonight and all the work we do. Thank you. We have some VIPs, some special guests. I think a few of them RSVP'd and couldn't come. Congresswoman Virginia Fox of North Carolina was going to try to be here. She could not. Congressman Louie Gohmert is here. Thank you, Congressman. Congressman Thomas Massey. Thanks, Congressman. Alden Abbott, I didn't see Alden Abbott, I don't think, but he's here. Oh, good, thank you. Alden Abbott, former general counsel of the FTC. Joe Allen is here. He was great on the panel. Joe, thank you. Joe had a big reveal a few minutes ago. He got business cards printed because we're actually doing face-to-face meetings. So if you don't have his business card, you want to get that. That you can also get a discount at Blockbuster Video, 10% off if you can find one. Joanne and Luke Livingston of Ground Floor Video, who produced, and Jenny Beth Martin are here, produced this award-winning documentary, Innovation Race. Where are Joanne and Luke? Oh, good, thank you. I didn't mean to step on you by bringing in Jenny Beth. Thank you. Congratulations on this documentary and the successful launch last night. We look forward to helping you promote it and get more and more people viewing it. So thanks very much for doing it. We're grateful. Jenny Beth, as always, on this issue and other issues, thanks for everything you do. We appreciate it. And we have some Senate and House staff led by Shelby Boswell, who was an Eagle, for a Phyllis Schlafly Eagle on the campus of Baylor University. It's not that hard to do that there. It's a pretty conservative place. So she did it, and now she works up on the Hill. But any of you all that are on the Hill, I think Congresswoman Boebert's got a staffer here and others, please stand so we can recognize you and give you Joe Allen's card. There you go. Thank you. Over here, too. All right. John Schlafly is Phyllis Schlafly's oldest son. He is himself has an advanced degree, a law degree in accounting law or whatever it was, some kind of technical thing. He's an engineer also and a lawyer. For the last 50 years of Phyllis's life, John was her right hand. And whether it came to policy issues, writing, politics. John Schlafly played a key role, and he continues to do so in our Eagles, all of our Eagles organizations. So he's going to talk a little bit about Phyllis's interest in patents and other great stories about Phyllis Schlafly. So John Schlafly. John, please.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you again to join us at this annual event. I guess I'm here to provide a link to our founder, Phyllis Schlafly, and the board of the organization that she founded 42 years ago. And the whole world has just watched. It occurred to me how Great Britain said goodbye to a woman who was part of everyone's life for the last 70 years. And I felt a little bit the same way, not to exaggerate the comparison, but Phyllis Schlafly had 70 years of public activism and civic engagement, and it was in my entire life. So, and among the issues that she championed, among many issues, was enthusiastic interest in inventors and patents, which she believed was the key to American prosperity. And she believed, as a supporter of the Constitution of 1787, she never stopped talking about how unique and original that was in the history of the world, in which the founders of our country gave to Congress as one of 18 powers the power to secure, not grant, but secure to authors and inventors for limited times the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. And just those few words, and the most important word in that phrase is exclusive. And making sure that the patent right is exclusive is part of the effort that I think everyone here is still engaged in today, because there are many threats to the exclusivity of patents. And so we've just, and she did a lot of public education about the great inventors of American history, and focusing, I guess, on the names that people knew. People who inventors used to be folk heroes. The people like, men like Edison and Westinghouse and Bell and so forth, and many others of that kind, and she would tell their stories, and how all of our lives were enriched by those people and by the law that gave them the right to profit from their contributions. And to pick just one example, a very big example, Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison, formed what would now be called a non-practicing entity. And we just saw how Judge Mukasey, that Ed referred to, spoke rather disparagingly in his recent article about non-practicing entities. Well, that's what Edison built. And some of you may have seen Edison's non-practicing entity, his lab, his invention factory, which he built in New Jersey, and which Henry Ford disassembled and rebuilt in Dearborn, Michigan. In any case, the romance and the history of inventions and the constitutional law that made it possible was what Phyllis was interested in and what she championed, and it's why we are carrying on that work today with these annual events. So thank you all for coming and for joining this. And I have to say a little bit, of course, the issues that we are mostly dealing about today are new in the last 10 years, basically. The definition of what's patentable. That wasn't an issue during Phyllis's time, I would say. But with the issues she dealt with, she fought the change from first to invent to first to file. She was active when China was not a power yet. The concern to America was primarily from Japan, and she fought the effort of Japan to steal America's patents. Now I guess Japan is not so much an issue anymore, and now it's China. And because China is on track to surpass the United States unless Americans, including the people in this room, take action under our Constitution to ensure that American innovation remains the best in the world. So again, thank you all for coming tonight and for joining in this important effort.
Thank you, John. And everybody at your seat, you should have received, you see that you receive a copy of this Volume 4 of Phyllis Schlafly's writings on patents and invention. And it's Chapter 3 is the reproduction of the speech at the Daughters of the American Revolution National Security Conference in 1988. Our next speaker at this point to speak on our theme of the night, how invention and patents help guard America's national security, is our great friend, Judge Paul Michel. He's a former Chief Judge of the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals. He had a huge footprint in IP jurisprudence over his 22 years on the bench, several thousand appeals, more than 800 opinions, almost a third of them on intellectual property law. One of the things he'll tell you when you visit with him for even a few minutes is he retired in large part, and now makes it his life's work to continue to fight for patents and for our patent system. It's incredible to visit with him. He warned against the America Invents Act and the Innovation Act, and he is a great leader on saving the patent eligibility doctrine from the judicial misrulings. Last year, in absentia, we gave him the Phyllis Schlafly Friend of American Invention Award. Perhaps no one has been more deserving than he in getting that award. So Judge Michel commenting on how inventions and patents help guard America's national security. Judge, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here, for supporting the Eagle Forum, and for allowing me to make some brief remarks to you before dinner. National security depends on many things, including patents. That might be a surprising statement to some, but I'm sure it's true. Economic security also depends on patents. And interestingly enough, in today's world, economic security really is national security and vice versa. My message to you tonight is simple. Because the courts have sapped the strength of the American patent system, previously the world's best, Congress must revive it. For almost 2 decades, the courts, unaware of patent economics, weakened the system. Congress surely has the power to restore patent strength. That cannot be questioned, for as John Schlafly mentioned, the Constitution itself expressly empowers Congress to promote progress of science and useful arts by enacting patent statutes. Congress did so throughout our history, most recently in 1952, building on prior versions of the Patent Act. Patents can protect inventions from being copied or even stolen, but only if they are strong, reliable, and enforceable. Despite this reality, the courts diluted and enfeebled the patent system as created and legislated by the Congress. By amending the Patent Act, the Congress can rescue the patent system, taking back control over national innovation policy, which was wrongly usurped by the courts, especially the Supreme Court. After all, in a democracy, only the people's elected representatives, not unelected judges, can legitimately make broad national economic and innovation policy. Congress must do so because maintaining superiority in the advanced 21st century technologies is absolutely critical to our national security. Today, that superiority is threatened by potential adversaries, including China. China itself, in recent years, has richly invested in R&D and strengthened its patent system, while, ironically, we were weakening our own. As a result, China is fast closing the technology gap, equaling us in some areas, and may already be ahead of us in a few. Commercial rivals, including Germany, the United Kingdom, Japan, Korea, and others, have also in this era upgraded their patent systems while we were weakening ours. Now their systems look better than our own in many respects. They look faster, cheaper, fairer, more rigorous. They have broader and more certain eligibility, stronger remedies, including routinely issuance of injunctions to bar further infringement. We no longer have that. So our dilemma today can be stated in this simple way. How can we get the whole Congress to understand the power of patents as those in this room, like Congressman Massey, already do? What too many fail to understand is that patents have not one, but two core functions, not only to encourage inventors, but also to incentivize investors. Too few understand that protecting investment promotes more of it. As we say in Washington, if you want to understand what's going on, follow the money. The investment I'm referring to is predominantly private investment. For every dollar the government invests in technology, such as advanced computer chips, private industry must invest vastly greater amounts, often 100-fold more, in order to perfect the technologies that may originate in government-financed R&D. Investment in technology, however, is risky, quite risky. The returns are uncertain, always long delayed, and often never realized. Thus, the incentive must be strong enough, or the investment will not be made. Whether venture capitalists or corporate executives managing a revenue stream, investment decision makers have many alternatives, and many of them are less risky than investing in technology. So unless patent protection is strong enough to overcome the risks, the money will be directed elsewhere. That capital flight is already underway, out of technology into entertainment and out of the U.S. to countries abroad, including, ironically, China. U.S. venture capital money going to China. How crazy is that? Now, once Congress fully appreciates how patents spur investment, the specific steps needed to strengthen our patent system become clear and passable, doable. They include, 1, enlarging and clarifying eligibility for both medical diagnostics and medical treatments, and for vast ranges of computer-implemented advanced technologies. Number 2, restoring injunctions as the normal remedy for proven infringement of the right to exclude. If you can't exclude people from copying, you don't have a right to exclude. That's what the Constitution says we're supposed to have. And of course, number 3, curtailing abuses of the challenge system at the Patent Office, the infamous Patent Trial and Appeal Board, which, among other things, allows infringers to file multiple and serial petitions, both themselves and through straw parties. Fortunately, several congressional leaders have proposed such reforms. They include Senators Coons and Phyllis and Representative Massey, who's with us tonight. For their proposals to pass, however, requires our educating their colleagues. They need allies. They need teammates. Patent economics is the key. President Lincoln, himself a patent owner, famously said that patents, quote, add the fuel of interest to the fire of genius. America is amply blessed with technology talent, but suffers from insufficient technology investment. That is why the rate of creation of technology startups is now lower than it has been in half a century. More die every year than are born. That's the first time that's ever happened. Yet startups and small businesses both have traditionally created more breakthrough inventions than big companies, and they're far more dependent on patents. So for them, patents are life and death. Strengthening patents, then, is as essential to increasing such investment as technological advance is to increasing national security. Here's how it works. Patents transform inventions into assets, assets that can be borrowed against, monetized, rented, sold. They therefore create wealth just as they fuel growth. And growth not only measured in GNP, but in job creation, global competitiveness, technological leadership, increased family incomes, increased government incomes, and many, many more benefits. I believe that once this is widely understood on Capitol Hill, reform becomes possible despite the powerful opponents, like anti-patent fanatics, of which there are many, and predatory serial infringers, including, unfortunately, some of our famous big tech companies. So far, however, congressional unawareness about patent economics has enabled these powerful opponents to block the legislative action needed to repair our ailing patent system. I'm doing what I can, as was mentioned by Ed, in my so-called retirement, working 7 days a week. I've written dozens of articles, I've given scores of speeches, I've testified repeatedly. But I'm not the only one. Many in this room have done the same, and others elsewhere have too. It's a growing army, but our number must be increased. We cannot let our voices be drowned out by reform opponents despite their massively funded lobbying and public ads on buses and everywhere else that contain lies like, quote, patents kill. No, patents don't kill. Patents save lives. So I present to you this request. I urge all of us, myself included, to consider it our mission to recruit peers, colleagues, friends, and others to join this effort to help educate the media and the Congress so we can straighten out this mess. After all, American innovation built this nation, as was mentioned. Thomas Edison, Westinghouse, Bell, Eli Whitney, the Wright brothers, it just goes on and on and on. And in the more recent times, endless medical breakthroughs of enormous importance to human health. So the past is clear, and we should remind Congress of that history. But the future is what faces us now, and the innovation system in America is equally critical to our future prosperity and security. Indeed, the safety of our country depends on informing Congress of what we all know. That is, strong patents encourage investment in cutting-edge technology. It will take not only speeches, statements, and articles and press releases, but sustained person-to-person communication with members of staff on Capitol Hill. I believe we can do this, and I know we must. Thanks for listening. Now please enjoy your dinner and the fine company at your table.
Now, we have a few minutes to enjoy the meal, but I want to set up for you. Congressman Louie Gohmert is leaving office, and so we didn't tell him this, but we've got some talent scouts here. We're going to do this later part as an interview situation. He and I are going to interview, but you thought it was me interviewing him. It's actually a test. Ellen is retiring, and they're thinking maybe Louie Gohmert could be a host of a daytime talk show, so we'll see. Michel, you don't even look like you like that one. You didn't like that one? All right, enjoy your meal. Okay, everyone, hey, if you can keep eating your dessert if you'd like, but we're going to start. We got this improvised mic already. It's putting him on the spot. All right.
Have you got something I can read from?
No, you're a politician. You don't need it. Okay, let's see. Everybody knows Congressman Gohmert, I think, in here, but you may not realize, especially some of the young people. There's young people at the table over there. The kids' table. I visited them. He was since 2004, 1st District of Texas. He's been great in Congress. One of the favorites. As someone said, what was the phrase, Shelby? What was the phrase you used? Unhinged in the best possible way. Actually, this could be a T-shirt for you. She said, unhinged in the best possible way. That's from a young staffer. That's pretty good, you know? That's awesome. And before that, he was a district court judge at the local level, but then he also was in the Court of Appeals, Texas A&M and Baylor School of Law, Jim Edward wants us to digress immediately into the SEC and all this kind of stuff right here. Yeah, there it is, Georgia Bulldogs. It's like a cult, isn't it, the Georgia Bulldogs thing? He's been on the House Judiciary Committee, and in particular on its Courts, Intellectual Property, and Internet Subcommittee. So first of all, let's start with that. How'd you end up there? How'd you end up caring about patents, caring about invention? You came out of the background that you would have thought, well, he's going to be on judiciary because he cares about crime and maybe pro-life, which are things you do care about. But how'd you end up on this issue, on the issue of patents?
Well, I believe in the American system, and I knew from my education, I had an Army scholarship at A&M. I knew I owed the Army 4 years, but one of the things I'd had in my background, kid from a small town in Mount Pleasant, Texas, and the director of the Student Center at A&M approached me. I'd helped him start a couple of organizations, and he said, Louie, hadn't you taken some Russian? And I said, yeah, I had to take 2 years of something. When I saw Russian, I thought, well, that sounds like fun. So my judgment's not always good, but...
Not Rush Week, it was Russian.
Russian. Yeah, and I said, yeah, I've just finished my second year. He said, the Soviet Union has reopened an exchange program that didn't last long. I really think you ought to go. I said, I got to work during the summer. You know, I set some money aside, and I need it for next year. I don't have the money to pay to go, and I need the money saved anyway. And so I saw him in a couple of weeks, and he said, Louie, your application for a travel loan has been approved. And I said, I didn't make an application. He said, I forgot to tell you. Yeah, I put one in for you, and it's approved. I said, how am I going to pay that back? And he said, you don't have to until after you graduate and you have a job, you know, and no interest on it. Anyway, he would not take no. So I went to the Soviet Union for the summer, and I learned...
What year was it?
73. Wow. It was the real Soviet Union. And I learned so much, and I'll always be grateful to Mr. Stark for forcing me into that. But, I mean, basic lessons like being out on a collective farm, and I've worked on farms and ranches, and they were about the same parallel we were in East Texas, in that part of Ukraine. And all the farmers at the middle, like 10 in the morning, were sitting in the shade. And I couldn't even tell. They had thousands of acres. I couldn't tell what was cultivated and what wasn't. And I said, I thought I was using my best Russian. I said, and I knew to smile so they wouldn't hit me, but when do you work out in the field? Because it looked bad. And they all laughed, and I thought maybe I didn't say it right. And one of them said in Russian, I make the same number of rubles if I'm out there in the sun or I'm here in the shade, so I stay in the shade. Wow. So, and Margaret Thatcher said, you know, it works till you run out of other people's money. I would submit it works until people figure out they can make just as much money doing nothing as working out in the hot sun. And so that summer really made me a fan of capitalism and the free market, and you start thinking about what makes that happen. We hate monopolies in America. The founders hated monopolies. They didn't want somebody big taking over everything, although Aaron Burr did with the Manhattan Water Company, but that's another story. That was fraud. But the only exception we make is for people that have the innovation from their own mind to create something. We say, you know what, we're going to give you a monopoly on this for a short period of time because we want to encourage people to do what you did. And you see, I mean, China, they can steal information very well. But, and by the way, Marsha Blackburn and I met with their head guy, copyright and patents, several years ago, and he said, "There's no theft of copyright." The only time there has been any kind of theft was DVDs, and we confiscated all of those. We don't let people do that. It's not happening like you say. And so then Marcia and I met with a lower ranking guy and I said, "What happened to all those DVDs?" He said they seized. He said, "Well, we have a law that the government can't throw valuable things away, so they sold them." Well, that does not encourage innovation. But these experiences through my life, you just see how much better it is when you encourage people and give them incentives and let them benefit. And, you know, before I knew Thomas Massey, I knew that he would not support just overhauling the patent system and going from first to invent to first to file. And I would have thought, does Darrell have the second highest number of patents, Thomas? I think so. Yeah, but that one shocked me. And at one point I said, "Darrell, you were able to get yours, and I'm thrilled you have. But you're pulling up the ladder behind you, man. That's not right. It's not. I don't understand why you would do that. You're not. Why do you want to hurt you?" No. It's all about patent trolls. We're trying to stop the patent trolls. And the only reason you're against patent reform is because you got all that patent litigation in East Texas, all those crazy plaintiffs' lawyers. Well, the first patent case filed in the Eastern District of Texas was filed by a single inventor. I think his name was Texas Instruments. Yeah. Okay, that's sarcasm. But anyway, and the reason they filed it is they knew the judges there would get them a trial that wouldn't drag on for 8-10 years, and they couldn't afford to have it drag on. They needed an answer. And so, but Darrell said, "Oh, you've got that rocket docket there in East Texas." And I said, "Okay, I've looked into that. It's 18 months average. You got a rocket docket, I think it was 12 months in one other district, Wisconsin or somewhere. And then there was another that was 2 years. I thought 18 months was that would get you an answer in good time." So anyway, all of these things I learned about patent litigation going on in East Texas when we had an engineer who was the Chief Justice of the East Texas Court of Appeals, got appointed to be the federal district judge. He was an engineer in addition to being a lawyer. So he was perfect. And then Rick Perry wanted me to fill in for him as Chief Justice. I'm going, "Well, what are you going to be doing over there?" Anyway, it's just funny how all of these things came together. But there is nothing more important to extending the life of a capitalist system, a free market system. Capitalists apparently not well accepted anymore, but a free market system, than giving a monopoly to give an incentive for things that are copyrighted or patented if they're the person that actually did the creation.
By the way, I just got a text, and Thomas Massey has changed his position. He's willing to have the Biden administration forgive your travel loan from that summer. That's what he said. That's the one thing he'll vote for. So thank you, Thomas Massey. That's really something. All right, now on the judiciary, on that subcommittee, you get there. You know what you're doing a little bit because there's this background. But what about your colleagues? You know, in other words, a lot of the Republicans or the conservatives, they say, "I'm for the market system, I'm for personal property, right? We don't lower my taxes, don't take my ranch, no eminent domain." Right. And you got to explain to them on this one, or did you, or do you? I mean, why isn't this? You end up with some left-wingers, Democrats that are with us on this issue. They see it better. Why is that? I mean, how do you explain that?
Well, that was a frustrating aspect. Because I could see you're going from first to invent to first to file? I mean, that means I could see before I talk to anybody, you can see where this is going. You will have big companies that have been trying to reach a solution to this problem, and you got some individual inventor out there, and they hear he or she's come up with something to fix the problem they hadn't been able to. So you send your guys in, come up with a little more general because you don't know how they fixed it, and get a patent on that. And you know whenever they file the real thing, you're going to be able to keep them litigated. And what really is, y'all know or you wouldn't be here, after all this time, you finally get, I think it's gone from average 18 months to 36 months to get a patent if you get one. And then, thank you, PTAB, they're like the Lord. They giveth and they'll take it away. And so, anyway, it just, trying to talk to people going, look, from just basic economics, you can't do that. This is underhanded. And I'd asked Darrell, actually, and I really like the guy. We've had disagreements over the years, but he had told me when I got there, he said he was in the Army 11 years, and I said, well, I was in 4, but everybody I knew that went over 10 just went ahead and stayed to 20 and get the retirement. And he said, well, you know, his wife didn't really like it, and he, as an officer, had been in charge of a motor pool, and he noticed you push a button, then the garage door, motor pool door would go up, and push it goes down. Wonder if you couldn't do that with a door lock. And he said, so he got a door, and he rigged it up and made it work. You push a button remotely, the lock goes up and down. Took it to a lawyer, and the lawyer was going, this has got real potential. You got anything else, any other drawings, any other models, anything? No, this is everything I got. Well, I need everything you got to file the patent. And that he took it and filed the patent for himself. And he talked to some lawyers, and they said, don't you have any evidence that you did this? I gave him everything. Well, then it's a losing cause. And I'm going, remember the guy that stole your automatic lock? I said, you're going to take that away from smaller guys that are just getting patents, getting in the business, and don't have the money to fight. Oh, no, this is all about stopping patent trolls. And I've read this bill. And if you want to stop patent trolls, this isn't the way. This will not stop patent trolls. And then imagine that, a year or two later, they come back. Well, that didn't stop patent trolls, so we need another bill, and this one really will. I read it, and I said, that doesn't stop patent trolls either. And so I would talk to our guys, but I was surprised we didn't have more Democrats get on board. And then I found out, and I like her a lot, but we have a member that represents so much of Silicon Valley. And apparently they really like the idea of the first to file instead of the first to invent. So, it's live and learn. Of course, as when I was sentencing people that committed felonies that had a long record, I would say, the saying is, you live and you learn. You hadn't done anything but live. You hadn't learned anything. And so we had some of those on the committee. They'd been living, but they hadn't learned anything. But some of them actually were wanting to come on board, but there was so much political pressure brought to bear on both sides of the aisle. All I could figure is Silicon Valley must have really put in the push on the Democrats, and then on the Republican side, it was stopping these patent trolls, and that really convinced a lot of people.
When you had the 2015, the Goodlatte markup, and you were in there, you were opposed, you stayed in there and voted against it, and a bunch of your own Republicans, even if they were against it, they just disappeared, right? That trick where they don't vote?
They did.
Yeah, so what, I don't know what this means to say, what's that like, but describe that. I mean, you know, that in other words, and why would you bother to stay too? I mean, it's because you're Louie Gohmert, and but I mean, what's that dynamic? You know, that's an example to me of how when people get frustrated with both parties, that's the perfect one to look at. If you're against it, hang in there. Go ahead and take the, you know, whack. Why not? What do you think?
Well, a lot of times there's not a lot of, you know, threats or pressure, but on that one there was. And, you know, I understand you disagree, but we're helping you on this, and we're going to help you get this position, and we need you to vote for this. And if you can't vote for it, then you better not be here to vote against it. And so that goes on. And I tell you, you know, don't try to shove my political beliefs on anybody else, but I think it's safe to tell you, you know, I'm a Christian, and there are so many Republicans who are Christians in Congress. And Ed, the most frustrating line I've heard in my 17 and a half years, I didn't expect to be there long, but I just kept wanting to stay long enough to feel like the next generation was going to still be free, and I could go home and just do something else. But over those times, the most frustrating line to me is friends who are Christians, and they say this, and I've heard it a million times, and I hate it. Louie, we don't have to worry. God's in control. And I heard a preacher in Denton, Texas, and I've come to love the guy. Big old guy, played football at North Texas State, Tommy Nelson. And Tommy, I heard him say, God's in control, but just because he's in control doesn't mean he wants you to lean on your shovel and pray for a hole. And that's what we got in Congress. We got so many people, hey, we don't have to worry, God's in control, and we'll pray that all this gets. No, he gave you the tools, and he expects you to use what you. So, Ed, that's been probably the most frustrating. Some are just derelicts, and you know they're corrupt, and you're not going to get them no matter what, and they've gotten good at lying. But it really hurts more when people you know are decent people, and they just walk away from doing the right thing.
You know, John Schlafly will probably correct me if I misquote it, but Phyllis used to say on this topic, she'd say when people say, well, don't worry, you know, God will take care of it at the ballot box, she would say, God's a little busy with other stuff. It's our job to get everybody to the ballot box. I mean, he's got other things he's working on. So, John, you can clean that up for me later in terms of, I want to go for this crowd who really knows this stuff. 2011, right? The Lamar Smith, Pat Leahy, the America Invents Act. You voted against it then. That wasn't, even back then, there wasn't a lot of you then saying, and you saw that, and it's turned out you were right on, you know, in a big way. Say that again, go ahead, say it.
Well, I read it, you know, and that's a dangerous thing, but, and Lamar Smith was the person that convinced the steering committee before I ever got to Congress that I needed to be on the Judiciary Committee. Oh, wow. And so he's been a friend, and he knew I would be a great advocate, and he really wanted me on there. So it was hard when it was Lamar pushing, saying, you've got to support this. And that's hard with a friend. And we were taking up another bill after that, and Lamar had a little amendment, wasn't a big deal, but after the hearing, Jim Jordan came up to Lamar and said, hey, Lamar, I know it was your amendment there, I just couldn't vote for that. And Lamar said, that's okay, Jim. And then he got in my face and he said, it's not like you opposed my patent reform bill. So apparently he had not gotten over that, and this was a good bit later. He hadn't gotten over it. But it's back to, you got to do what you know's right.
All right, you mentioned you're in the Army and a lot of different experience. Today's conversation, especially down in the symposium, was about national security. When you think about America's competitiveness in the world and the problem of diluting the patent protection, how do you think about or talk about, what's your thoughts on national security? America's competitiveness is our one of our great assets compared to everywhere else. So how do you tie them together or think about them?
Well, Mother wanted me to be a doctor, but since I knew I was going to the Army, and I just had this feeling, I need to go to law school. I think I can do some good having that degree. I majored in history, freaked my dad out. What are you going to do with that degree? You can't get a job. Anyway, but I love history. And kind of like I told Donald Trump in the fall of 2016, I said, you know from just your business acumen, I know from studying history, that any major power that cannot produce what it needs in a time of war will not remain a major power after the next war. And you've got that. We got to get back to producing what we need here. And that also means you get to inventing. You need invention, and you need to be able to produce what you need. You need to be able to produce the advanced products. And, Trump got that. But it's all of the history. I mean, I'm not an engineer.
They're really annoying, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I learned about engineers too in physics in high school. I love physics, made an A in it, but we had a brilliant guy that taught it, and he said, let me tell you about engineers. You got scientists, mathematicians, architects. If you ask any of them, how long would it take if you put a naked girl on one side, a naked man on the other side, and you move halfway to each other,
Phyllis Schlafly, speak carefully.
halfway to each other, halfway to each other, halfway to how long before they'd meet? Well, any of those people would say they'll never meet because they get closer. But an engineer will tell you, for all practical purposes, they'll be close enough. So I got that education in high school. But yeah, so it's physics, it's science in high school, and did some of that in college. But it's also the common sense you get. People ask me, gee, I would like to be a member of Congress. What's the best job you ever had for preparing you for Congress? Was it being an intern for a congressman? I said, no, I've never been an intern for a congressman.
Babysitting?
I've done about everything there is. I've crawled under houses and repaired them when I had to dig under to get back there and dig my way back out. Just or working farms, ranches, being a teller one summer. I mean, lots and lots of construction, but every job I ever did helped prepare me for Congress. And so I think all of those things, the more, the bigger base you've got, the better it helps prepare you. But it was the history and understanding. We didn't even have a bankruptcy law. Wasn't it Morris that was the big banker for the Revolution? And yet that guy ends up, when he finds out it's probably going to be around where the District of Columbia was, he bought all this land, and then he got land poor, and he went to prison because he couldn't pay his bills. And he was there 2 or 3 years, y'all know the story, and he eventually somebody said, hey, in our Constitution, it's got a provision for bankruptcy. Maybe we ought to have a bankruptcy law and we can get Morris out of the prison. So they did, but he was in such bad shape by then, he died. But the same thing, those founders had great intellect. Can I share a Scalia story? Sure. I love Justice Scalia. I love Clarence Thomas. And I love the fact that John Yoo, that clerked for him, he spoke after me at an event, and he said he may be the smartest justice on the court. People don't give him credit. He's wonderful. But Scalia told a lot of jokes and stories like I did, like my mother did. And I tell you, I didn't give mother credit. Dad was the strong, he died last year. Smart, strong, silent type, right and wrong. Mother was the troublemaker. She'd stand up in church, town meetings, neighborhood meetings, and I'd be yanking, Mother, please sit down, we're embarrassed. And then I was the one, my girls going, Daddy, please sit down, you're embarrassing. And I still do. But anyway, Mother instilled those kind of traits. You got to stand up for what's right. It's all that combination of things. But
Scalia story.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Scalia. So we had a few meals, different times, and if you tell a lot of jokes, stories, and you're sharing them with somebody else, about third or half of what you have to say, the other one hears the first line, oh, yeah, I did it. And so we're doing that. And so anyway, I told Scalia, I said, well, I came from a real conservative area in northeast Texas, small town, but I was an assistant DA for a while, and the DA was telling me, and we're about 4 hours from the biggest, 5 hours from the biggest state prison down in Huntsville, which was also where death row was, and they had an electric chair called Old Sparky. And anyway, the law now is, on a death penalty case, you question the jury, and if any potential juror could never even consider giving the death penalty, then they can't consider the full range of punishment, and they can't be on the jury. I'm telling Scalia this. I knew it was supposed to be a true story, so he hadn't heard that one. I guess he had heard a couple I was trying to sell. But anyway, so the DA is explaining to the big jury panel, so the law is clear. You have to be able to at least be able to give the death penalty if the evidence justified it. So is there anybody here who couldn't give the death penalty if the evidence made clear that's what needed to happen? And one guy's hand shot up. It looked like a farmer, and he said, well, they do that down in Huntsville, don't they? And he said, yes, sir, they do. He said, okay, I could do it on a weekend, but I can't drive down there in the middle of the week to do that. Now, that's a conservative area. And so I told Scalia that, and Scalia said, well, that reminds me of the one, you heard about the guy, they were going to hang him in the town square? I said, I don't know if I have, and I hadn't. He said, yeah, he was the worst of the worst. He had murdered, robbed, pillaged. He left a wake of victims, and that Saturday morning, the sheriff leads him up the gallows. There's 4,000 people there, and the sheriff brings him to the front of the gallows and says, okay, we have a tradition in this town that before we hang somebody, we will give them a chance to address the crowd.
We got naked women and death penalty stories in the same Phyllis Schlafly event. Go ahead.
So he says, so would you like to address the crowd? And he said, no. And the sheriff said, I don't think you understand. You're about to meet the supreme judge of the universe. And most people that come up here before they meet their maker, they realize it's probably a good idea. You've got so many victims' families out here. Maybe apologize, say you're sorry for what you did before you go meet your maker, and wish you could make it, something like that. Wouldn't you like to do that? And he said, no, not really. And somebody in the crowd yelled, will the gentleman yield? And he looks at the sheriff and he said, I don't know what that means. And the sheriff said, well, that guy that yelled that, that's our local congressman. And that's his way of asking you to let him take your time to address the crowd. And the guy said, well, could I do that? And the sheriff said, well, I guess if you want to. Do you want to? He said, I sure do. And he said, but on one condition, you go ahead and hang me first. Now, that was a Scalia story. So, anyway.
That took a nice turn. At least that was anti-politician or something. That was... Ryan, we're going to have to cut the naked women portion of the program out, just to be clear. Yeah, John blacked out for a portion of this segment here. Okay. Now, we're just going to finish up now, maybe. What I don't know. Do you have any other Scalia stories? See, I think you could actually do, like, think about radio or TV. Maybe radio.
Says, I got to have a radio show.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, just to tell the Scalia stories. All right, we'll finish with this, though, for this crowd. We're going off into the world where it looks like there'll be a Republican House, maybe a Republican House and Senate, maybe, if God wills, a Republican president in a couple of years. How do you think, or give your kind of really like a sort of rah-rah speech on protecting patents? Like, how do we go talk about this, think about this, motivate? There's good bills that are out there that are, Massey's got one, right, and there's others that are around, and we need to be excited about it. And I guess maybe I'll say another way, you're not going anywhere really, right? You're going to come back and forth here. So in terms of helping us with...
This country is still hanging in the balance.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can't get out of the fight. The country's hanging in the balance. It really could literally go either way. And so we got to be in the fight. But, so your question, how to explain that, and I don't know, maybe Thomas got a better way, but we have lived through the days when Democrats and Republicans put the pressure on everybody and said, you got to vote for it. We got to stop the patent trolls. They're killing the country. Well, that hasn't happened. It's killed ingenuity. It's killed the ability to, people can't make a living, just inventing. And I'm sure you're aware, 20%, 30 years ago, 20% of patents were by individual inventors, and now we're down to 5%. We've killed innovation. Down to 5% is all well, you can't afford to do it because you can't beat the big guys. And most everybody here would be familiar with the story about the guy that invented the intermittent windshield wipers and 20 years of litigation. And even though he lost his wife, he lost his family, he got a really big payday at the end of it. Well, not only did we hurt the we eliminated the first to invent, the first to file, but really did damage to the damages. So even if that guy had gone 20 years in litigation with Ford under the current law, he wouldn't have had squat. He wouldn't have had much of anything from the damages. All of the case law, all of the rules on how you get to damages were gone. And so this has got to be cleaned up because we have got to get back, and especially, it was Americans that came up with the technology. So if we launch a rocket, it's going to hit right on target. And the Chinese couldn't do it. So fortunately, we had a benevolent president named Bill Clinton, and so we gave it to him. And here you go. You may want to shoot at us sometime.
Well, they had to stay at the Lincoln bedroom.
There you go. Yeah. And then we had North Korea, and they were doing everything they could to try to figure out how to do a nuke. And so nuke is what they wanted, but they sent, what's her name, Sherman? She was with that group. Also went to Iran to cut that deal to help them get a nuke. But they have a deal, and they say, here you go. If you'll just sign here, we'll give you everything you need to make a nuke, but you have to sign here saying you won't ever make a nuke. You know, he's going, wait, you'll give me everything I need to make a nuke? All I got to do is sign? Like Foxworthy talking about when he didn't have any money. Guy shows up, I got to take your Mustang. No, I got to have that or I can't go to my jobs and then I'm broke. He said, my instructions are either come back with the car or come back with cash or a check. Check? You'll take a check? Well, why didn't you say that? He said, how much you want? I'll give you a check. Well, that was kind of North Korea. All I got to do is sign. Oh, well, it's like, give it here. I'll sign that in a hurry. And the same way with Iran. You know what I mean? All we got to do is sign, and then we can develop that thing. Yeah, so same kind of deal. But this, kidding around. But this, and I get sick of people using the term existential, but it is. And we're falling behind, and I think it has a tremendous amount to do with the damage we did to patents. And we got to fix that, or we're not going to ever get back to where we were. And if we can't rein in technology, then, it just hastens our demise. And then you're back to that moment Reagan talked about when you tell your kids what it was like when we were free.
Well, thank you, Congressman Gohmert, for not telling any Hooters stories there at the end or bikini stories. That helped me a lot. But no, thank you first of all, thank you for being here with us. There's a lot of time for you to come and for everything you did. Phyllis Schlafly loved you, as you know, and believed in you, and this group does too. So, Congressman Louie Gohmert, thank you so much for being here. Hey, Jim. Yeah, Thomas and Jim. No, Thomas too. We want to give Congressman Louie Gohmert the award that we have, we love so much that we care, Phyllis Schlafly Inventors Award. And we have a couple of past recipients. Help me, Jim. Judge Michel is here. Come on up. And, Yanku is not here. Where's the award, Joanna? The actual physical award. Oh, yeah, I want to get, you get rebuttal time. Wait, you get rebuttal time. Yeah, go ahead, Massey. All right. Massey's going to get
Louie told Scalia stories. I got to tell a Louie story. So we're in a GOP conference, and, I had only been there a little while. And this is where we huddle, and the team comes together, and we call the play, and then you go out and you vote that way. And Louie, we were in the back. I don't know what the play had been called. But Louie leaned to me, and he said, I'm sick of these football analogies. He says, if my quarterback snaps the ball and runs for the wrong end zone, I ain't blocking for him. In fact, I might have to tackle him.
All right, go stand over there with him. Alden, come up too. Alden, come up. Yeah, these are our past winners of this award. John Schlafly, come up too. There's a little too many men, though. Let's see. Anyway, Phyllis Schlafly, Friend of American Invention Award. Each year we give this, and we covered in our conversation, Louie, so many things you did for us, and we're so grateful. And so we're going to give you this award. Thank you, Louie. All right. You can comment if you want. Go ahead.
Kid around, that comes from my mother, too. But it wasn't that I elected to leave Congress, and I've done enough. Like I said, I wanted to feel certain freedom would be here for my kids for another generation, and they don't see the danger. But in my opinion, we had an attorney general that should be in legal trouble, and I expect that to happen unless the DOJ just wants to blackmail him. But so I'm leaving Congress with a broken heart. Freedom is not assured. We got a lot more work to do. And so this means a great deal to me, Ed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. take a picture with him over there, too. Ryan, come back. Yeah, you stand there. Oh, yeah, we're going to do him next. Oh, go. You guys take a photo there. We also are pleased tonight to give an award, the Phyllis Schlafly Award, to Joe Allen. Joe, if you'll come up, please. We heard earlier such important conversation, Joe's experience with the Bayh-Dole bill, and also his insight in how to do this well and do it bipartisan, which is a big part of this. So we were talking earlier, Joe, as I was taking notes and learning about this, consensus was there's no Bayh-Dole Act without the staff and you and others, and really put this together. It's made a huge difference. Joe Allen, for those that don't know, served on the Senate Judiciary Committee for Indiana Senator Birch Bayh, and has been a cornerstone of the innovation ecosystem, what he did. And so we want to thank you, and more as we're today. You were a great presence among us and such a privilege. So we give you this award and thank you for your service. So thank you, Joe. There we go. I can't get over there, Joe. I'll stay here. Hey, you got anything more you want to say? No. You sure? Yeah. All right. I just checking. Joe, did you want to say? Hey, Joe, did you want to say a few words? I meant to give you a chance. Come on. You got any jokes? Any dancing girls or anything?
How can you follow that? As a former staffer, you know when to get off the stage when you actually have a real star. And this is, first of all, I really appreciate this. This is truly an honor. This is a fight we have to win. As Congressman said, the fate of the country is literally at stake. You hear that all the time, but this is for real. And the odds are against us. I mean, unfortunately, you know, all the time we're playing defense and we're thinking, what are you talking about? What are you thinking about? And the problem is people are taking our success for granted, and it doesn't take very long for that to be gone. So again, thank you for everything you've done. It's an honor to be with you. The Eagle Forum has never run from a fight, and we've been together for a lot of times, and a lot of times it's not very pretty, but without people standing up now, it's going to be dire. And thank God for people like Congressman Gohmert. You have to have people. It's time to say what we need to say. And the final thing is, it's time we stopped pretending like the other side has the moral high ground. They do not. And it's time we stood up to them and refused to accept it.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Well said, Joe. So we're at the end of our program. I just want to say a few thank yous. Again, our sponsors, it's so important that we have these great sponsors. Cassia Research Group, Bio, Innovation Alliance, Interdigital, and Pharma. They make it possible for a lot of the work we do and these events. It's so important. I want to say thank you to Jim Edwards for his phenomenal work, Joanna Spilger in the back from our team, as well as Ryan Height. So thank you for those three. Yeah, give them a round of applause, and especially Jim. And I'll just finish by echoing what Joe said and what Louie shows, which is you can get anything done when you work together. You can get anything done when you're willing to stand up for where we are. And the great thing is most of the culture and a lot of the political class is kind of tired and lazy and broken, and so we have an opportunity. And so I think Byron Donald was here, and a few people said, we got to go meet that guy, and Thomas Massey's always accessible. There's a real opportunity as the new Republican leadership comes in, God willing, that we can shape what the agenda is, that we can sell the argument that I think people believe in their heart, especially conservatives, but both parties, to make a difference. There's so much hunger for the truth of what is happening in this country and in our Constitution, and we have a chance to do it together. And as Joe said, we, the Eagles, we don't shy from a fight. We like eagles are birds that like storms. That's what they like. So we're here to do this in our team, and we look forward to it. So thank you for being here. Thank you again to our sponsors, and especially thank you to Congressman Louie Gohmert and Joe Allen, our awardees tonight. So thank you all. God bless you, and we'll see you soon. Yep, thank you.